Do the Titans have a miracle left in them in what has been a magical season to this point? If they do, they need it now. Christie kicks it high and short. Going to be fielded by Lorenzo Neal at the 25. Pitches it back to Wycheck. He throws it across the field to Dyson.
He's got something.
30,
He's got
40,
something.
50.
He's got it.
40.
He's got it.
20. 10.
He's got it.
End zone. Touchdown Titans. There are no flags on the field. It's a miracle. Tennessee has pulled a miracle.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in. This is the first episode of the 1796 Titans podcast. I've got a familiar face. I got Code Orange. He's going to be a co-host of this podcast. Ryan will normally be with us, but he had something come up and he couldn't be here tonight. And then Jack, who you all have seen on the website, he's our primary Titans writer right now. He's going to be joining us. What's up, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, brother?
All right, so it's kind of the dead zone right now. The draft is behind us, free agency is behind us. So, but there's a perfect time to start because it's the off season. Lots happened. So, Jack, let's start with you. I want your initial thoughts on just the draft class for the Titans as a whole.
This draft class is actually extremely solid. When I looked at it, there's no superstar prospects that the Titans grabbed, but they grabbed a lot of really solid guys that are going to easily be able to contribute year one for them.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's not like the sexiest draft by any means. But when you're a team like the Titans who just needs, players that fit in, it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. They are, you got Cedric Gray, who's probably going to slide into linebacker, starting there next to Kenneth Murray. You got Latham, who's going to be hopefully playing on the left side. Hopefully we say that. And then, of course, T'Vondre Sweat, which is the big kind of elephant in the room, really, most literally and metaphorically, that, what is he going to bring to this team and can he contribute right away?
For sure. I mean, I think this draft will be made in the middle rounds just because of these positions that they drafted in the middle rounds are guys that I think are going to be in a position to immediately play a role. Code, what did you think overall?
I got to agree with Jack in that aspect. When you initially, as a fan, when you're there and you want the fanfare and the excitement of, oh, who are we getting in the first round? It wasn't Malik Neighbors, but it was a position that was addressed that it was direly needed. I'm going to shed some light on something for me, and I was the hater from that allowed my college fandom to stand in the way of wanting Will Levis to succeed. But he's our quarterback. So whatever pieces we need to put in front of the kid, he's a dog, and he absolutely wants to win. So I would probably say B-, just as far as from the naked eye looking at it. But from a team perspective building, I would give it probably an A- overall, just for fitting needs that we addressed.
Yeah. So I was the biggest Joe Alt fan. I wanted Joe Alt so bad. Every mock I did included Joe Alt. And if it didn't include Joe Alt, it was either a trade back or Malik Neighbors, which obviously Neighbors would have been the sexy pick. It would have been the jersey selling pick. It would have, been good for tickets and stuff. But the thing is, we need a left tackle. Honestly, I don't know if it's just like Code, how we always say we have battered ball syndrome, like BVS. It's definitely a thing with Titans as well. I have battered Titan syndrome. I mean, when you tell me that you drafted a right tackle who's never played left tackle and you're going to put him at left tackle and he pretty much has to be amazing from day one, that makes me nervous, especially when you hear that Rand Carthon admitted that they had the option to trade down and they didn't. So in my opinion, Latham has to be a star, and he has to be good immediately, or it's going to look terrible. I mean, pretty much no mock had Latham going as high as the Titans took him. There's no denying that he has the size, he has the skill set to be elite, but it's just hard to be any more excited about it than I am when we've never seen him do it. And I mean, I can't deny that the Alabama factor plays a little bit of a role because, I mean, you look at Alex Leatherwood. I mean, you look at some of the tackles that have been drafted recently, and they suck. So I mean, it makes me a little nervous, but overall, I think it was a very good value draft. I liked the Tavondre Sweat more than a lot of people did. I liked that pick a lot. The middle rounds I thought really redeemed it because I think Cedric and Brownlee can be starters, impact starters at that. And even in the 7th round, I thought they got good value. I thought the edge rusher from Michigan, I think he can challenge for a rotational role immediately. I think James Williams can be a good player at linebacker. I thought they really redeemed it on the 2nd and 3rd day.
Yeah, I mean, I think a huge thing was we were all kind of thinking that sexy pick, Malik Neighbors or Joe Alt. And Joe Alt was really kind of number one sexy pick for a lot of Titans fans. And I know for myself, I was so disappointed when I saw the Chargers grab him at 5. And I think we knew stuff was about to hit the fan because a lot of mocks had Neighbors at 6. And so as Titans fans were thinking, okay, trade down time, right? This is worst case scenario. But instead, Rand went with, his gut, and apparently Bill Callahan signed off completely. And, I trust Bill Callahan and his scouting of offensive linemen. And they ended up sticking and picking with, Latham there. And thankfully, one of the big things that helps put me at ease at night is at least Bill Callahan is the one that's going to help him transition from right tackle to left tackle. And he's already done that with Tyron Smith, who's been one of the best left tackles, since he was drafted, and as well as Jedrick Willis, who's been pretty solid for the Browns for the past few years.
That's a good point. Like, it does make me trust it more that we have one of the best offensive line coaches in the league coaching him up. I mean, if we still had that mongoloid Keith Carter, I wouldn't be confident at all. But like you said, it even came out that Bill Callahan, I mean, he could just be saying this, who knows, but it was reported that Latham was actually Bill Callahan's preferred choice, even if Alt was there. So that's definitely interesting. I mean, Bill Callahan knows how to evaluate linemen better than I do, so I can defer to him on that. Code, what did you think about Tavondre Sweat? I know you're an Arkansas guy. You live in Arkansas. I don't know if you have any insight on, Texas Tavondre Sweat. What did you think about his college tape and stuff?
Looking at Sweat play, man, he's somebody that's going to be an every down type of lineman. But he's somebody that I think if he gets the right mentorship, aka Big Jeff or somebody along those lines on the line, and honestly, it's going to sound bad because I don't know off the top of my head, but if the kid loses 10 pounds, then you might see him on the opposite side of not the interior of the line. Just looking at some of the tape, I know the Arkansas-Texas game, he had a couple of big plays, just watching that loosely. I don't like the pick, man, and I loathe the University of Texas, but I think he's going to fit our system well. I'll agree with that. Can you imagine what type of uproar there would have been if Alt would have been there and he would have taken J.C. Latham instead of Joe Alt?
Oh, it would have been. I think most things that I've seen grade the Latham pick as like a B-. It's like they like the player and the fit, but they think it was a kind of a reach. That would be amplified times 10 if Alt was available.
Yeah, this fan base would absolutely be in an uproar. It would be bad because when you look at Joe Alt, You know he's not ultra powerful, but I think he is the safest pick at left that was at the draft at left tackle that you could have made. He's played at left tackle his whole career. He's given up, I don't know, 2 or 3 sacks his entire career at Notre Dame, and has the finesse, and he was the consensus #1 left tackle in the draft. Now, of course, there are some variant differences, similar to Malik Neighbors versus Marvin Harrison Jr., who's the actual #1 wide receiver. But for the most part, I think most GMs looked at it as Joe Alt being the best in terms of, if you just look at his finesse and look at his footwork, he's not going to beat you with power, but he's going to beat you with his size and his technique.
Yeah, I think Alt definitely has the highest floor. I think his floor is a starter for a decade and multiple Pro Bowls. But his ceiling is probably not much higher than that. Like, his floor and ceiling probably aren't that different. I do think Latham could be an actual All-Pro if he hits, but I do think his floor is a lot lower. So, T'Vondre Sweat, Code, I wanted to point something you said, though. I'm glad that you said that you think he can be an every down player, because the people that don't like Sweat, they keep saying that he is going to come off on third downs. And I don't necessarily think that's true, because yes, I know he's overweight. He's 360 pounds. But the thing about it is, he ran a 40-yard dash that, when you equate it to his weight, it's the equivalent of a 180-pound player running a 4.2. So he's not like some fat slob that's like not in shape. Like, I don't think he's not going to be sucking wind after 2 downs. So I don't think that the criticism in that regard is fair. When you're in college, it is a job, but it's not. I think now that he's actually in the NFL and the team has taken a chance on him, and he's going to have all the resources that NFL players have. I think if he keeps his weight around 350, I think he'll be totally fine.
Absolutely.
Especially, like you said, Code, with Big Jeff there to mentor him. And also, I mean, we got to touch on it. It's kind of the elephant in the room. A lot of people also don't like the pick because of his arrest, but that's another thing that Jeffrey Simmons can help him with, because before the draft, Jeffrey Simmons also had a legal thing come up, and people were worried about it then, and he has been a model citizen. Like, it hasn't mattered one iota. So if anybody knows how to get through stuff like that, I mean, I think Jeffrey Simmons is the perfect person for T'Vondre to be teammates with.
We tend to forget as well that, and I'm saying that as a 33-year-old, but these are still kids that are coming out of college.
Mm-hmm.
If all of us were held to the accountability at all times of things that we did in our past when we were young and stupid, then nobody in life would have the opportunity to progress.
Exactly. I mean, Jack knows I was a totally different person when I was 18 than I am now. Like, I can't imagine if these athletes, they have a lot of money, they have a lot of power and stature. Like, of course they're going to do some stupid stuff. I'm not condoning drinking while driving, obviously, but I mean, he's young. He's going to make mistakes, and I don't think that should be factored into his grade, at least until, he gives you a reason to. But I don't think that should matter. Jack, I know at first you weren't very high on T'Vondre. Have you changed at all? What do you think?
Okay. T'Vondre, the football player, sky high. The guy he won the Outland Trophy last year. And y'all guys know that's given to the best offensive defensive line player in college football. Yeah. And he was an absolute force. Not only that, but he outplayed the guy that went 22 spots ahead of him, Byron Murphy, on his own team. And he was actually ranked higher in PFF. He's an absolute monster. He's just too big, too strong, and he's extremely quick and agile, especially with his hands, that he can shove the hands down, hit a swim move, or hit an underneath on the guard center and just absolutely get there. So T'Vondre Sweat as a football player is phenomenal, and he would have a first round grade more than likely. And I saw some mocks that had him in the first round, late second before his arrest, right? And then after his arrest, all of a sudden he drops, 100, 300, or sorry, 150 spots on the big board for a lot of these people like Dane Brugler or, Mel Kiper, et cetera. But so as the character, that's where I'm concerned, because we still have panda syndrome, right?
Yeah.
I can't get that out of my head. Every time, that somebody with character concerns comes to the Titans, it's gonna go back to Panda. Now, I don't think he's that same type of person, and it looks like he really does, really love football. I saw a video of him working out with Xavier Worthy and some of the other Texas guys 2 days after they got drafted. So I think that really speaks volumes. Now, Brian Callahan, he mentioned after his post-draft press conference, he mentioned that, Sweat's going to be on a weight plan for the most part, or alluding to that, and that he'll have certain consequences for not making weight. So I think the Titans want him to be around 355, 350. So right now he's allegedly at 366. So that shouldn't be too hard to lose 11 pounds when you're that big. And he's gonna get worked by, Simmons, and he's of course got, Sebastian Joseph Day, who's also a good vet on the D line. So I think the situation for him to succeed is there. And so I unfortunately he's just going to have that cloud hanging over his head until he shows up on Sundays and just balls out. Cause I really feel that he can be Albert Hainsworth 2.0 minus the post-contract Albert Hainsworth. And I know y'all Vol fans, you got to love that.
I will say, as far as you were talking about Bryce or you, Jack, the transition from pro to college. I think it was you, Bryce, about college not being a job, but it is kind of, versus this being a full-time job. And I think not necessarily by this position, but I think a lot of people are. I think they are scolded because of how Traylon performed and looked in college versus the way Traylon Burks is doing for us now.
Yeah, Traylon right now he's on thin ice, and it's certainly like he's going to be in trouble here if the Titans end up signing Tyler Boyd. And yeah, and so if Tyler Boyd, gets signed to the Titans, hope and pray that's the case, because behind D-Hop and Calvin Ridley, it's not good. It's just NWI, who's been here for the past, 4 or 5 years, and he's an okay guy as a back end roster guy that can fill in if in case of injuries or anything like that. But I don't think he has a skill set like Tyler Boyd, although he's younger, NWI. But Tyler Boyd, he's about 29, I think, somewhere around there. And he produced pretty well for the Bengals in the third wide receiver spot last year. He had 667 yards, something like that, 2 touchdowns. 60 or so catches, somewhere around there. So I think
a legitimate third option in case you needed a no shit stick.
Yeah, exactly. So he was a legitimate option, and I'm not sure, looking at this Titans roster right now, that there's a legitimate slot option. And Brian Callahan attested to that, pre-draft, that there's not a specific slot wide receiver on this team, and he was looking for one. And they drafted Jaquan Jackson, Addis Hulane, Tyjae Spears' best friend, to maybe fill that role, but I don't think he's going to get much playing time as a wide receiver. I think most of his playing time is going to come being a punt returner and a kick returner, because that has been, besides O-line, that has been the weakest part of this Titans team for the past, I don't even know how long, since Mark Mariani. It's been that long that the Titans have not had a consistent return man back there. And for the past 2 to 3 years, we can't find a punt returner, kick returner to catch a ball. it's just unsatisfactory.
Well, yeah, I think the Tyler Boyd news kind of like proves to me that Brian Callahan is not a fan of Treylon, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think you could find a Titans fan that's a fan of Traylon Burks.
No, I mean, he's given you no reason to believe in him. I mean, he's already. It started off weird. I mean, with the mystery asthma, that was never a problem until he became an NFL player, and then he shows up overweight this offseason. It's like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like last year, he missed a month with a concussion. I don't know. I'm not a fan. Um, especially, and I think all of us would agree, it makes it worse that what we gave up, like
Yeah.
if Treylon Burks was just like a flyer second round pick, it wouldn't be as like disgusting. But the fact that like we gave up probably the best receiver in franchise history for a guy who can barely stay on the field, like, I mean, it's beating a dead horse.
Let's be clear. AJ was going to be gone either way.
Yep, I was just about to bring that point up. AJ Brown is too big for Tennessee, too big for Nashville. He thinks he's a superstar, and rightfully so. He is a superstar. You remember that picture when he was a rookie with those Gucci glasses on, and it sent Twitter into an uproar because we were all like, "Yeah, that's our wide receiver right there," because you want a diva wide receiver, and unfortunately, we just can't handle that without competent quarterback play for the most part, and I think he wouldn't have signed a second contract because he really seemed like he really ended up being where he ought to be.
I do think it could have been managed differently, though. I think part of it was Mike Vrabel being an egomaniac and John Robinson thinking, oh, we don't need a star receiver. We can make it work, like it's 1996, and we can just have a bunch of grocery baggers at receiver and it'll be fine. But who knows? I mean, you're probably right. I mean, he probably did want to go to a bigger market. But still, I mean, it would be nice to get something out of Treylon, and it seems like they're gearing up for that to not happen.
Let's address the biggest elephant in the room. You ready?
Let's hear it.
How do we feel about Tony Pollard replacing Derrick Henry?
Well, I'd say Tony Pollard cannot replace Derrick Henry. There's not going to be another.
Well, nobody is going to replace him, but I mean, as far as his roster spot,
sure, yeah. So as far as his roster spot, I think Brian Callahan or actually Nick Holt said it a few months ago that Tajay and Tony Pollard are going to be 1A, 1B when it comes to this running back backfield, and I think it's a pretty good fit actually because Tony Pollard can both catch the ball out of the backfield. He's pretty agile, quick, fast. He ran it for over 1,000 yards last year, despite having injuries. And and Tajay, I honestly felt though that we could have just rolled with Tajay and probably gotten someone a little bit cheaper as at the running back position, and have Tajay be the number one back because he came in and played really well for being mostly a third down back and almost having over 800 total scrimmage yards last year.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have preferred, like, Tony Pollard wouldn't have been my first choice or anything. I just think nowadays when you invest a ton of, it's not really a ton of money, but you don't really need to do that on the running back position anymore. But to answer your question, Code, I think it'll be fine. I really do. I mean, I know Derrick Henry is a beloved figure in Titans lore, and deservedly so. But I do think it was time to move on. I think that I don't even know how to say this. I don't want to say it's not that Derrick Henry was holding the offense back because he single-handedly won games for us, probably 20, 30 games. But the thing about it is when you have Derrick Henry on your team, you want to use Derrick Henry, and you get comfortable with Derrick Henry. And it's at the point now where I think we rode him long enough. I think that the team is kind of showing you that because they went out and got Calvin Ridley. You know, they got Tony Pollard, who's a weapon in the receiving game. I think having a versatile guy like Tony Pollard, who, and I know Derrick Henry caught passes too, but a guy like Tony Pollard, I mean, I just think it's fine. I don't think there will be like, if anything, I think our offense will be better than it was this year. I don't think we're going like taking a massive
backwards.
step back.
Yeah. My only downfall was at the trade deadline. There was so much talk about Derek getting traded to Baltimore for us not to get anything out of the deal, and him to still end up signing with that team at the end of the year was kind of like, well, we could have got something for him.
That was definitely a move that was like made with the heart and not the brain. Because I don't think Amy, like in good conscience, could like. I have it on pretty good authority that she vetoed that trade. That the trade actually was agreed to, and I just don't think she could live with herself to do it. Which I understand. I mean, Samari Roll, Derek Mason, Steve McNair, now Derrick Henry, but he ended up going there anyway, like you said. So it would have been nice to at least get like a third or fourth round pick for him at the very least. I really wish he went to the NFC so I could still root for him. Like I wish he went to the Cowboys or something. I know you both hate the Cowboys, but I wish he went. I wish he went to the NFC. Just going to the Ravens, like it's just so gross. I'm so tired of seeing Titans legends in the purple and black. It makes me want to vomit. But Jack, I have a question for you.
What's up, man?
What was your favorite value pick of the draft, and your least favorite pick?
All right, my favorite value pick of the draft. I think that's got to be Cedric Gray.
I agree.
Cedric Gray at a UNC just seems like such a home run fit. He was just everywhere. Was first team All ACC linebacker for the past 2 years. Led the team over 120 tackles, I think, the last 2 or 3 years. And we badly, desperately needed somebody that can go and, attack the football, because last year with Luke Gifford and Jack Gibbons and some of those other guys, they just weren't cutting it. Absolutely not cutting it. And I think with the ability of having Simmons and Sweat and Sebastian Joseph Day on the D line, and however they rotate that, I think it's gonna really work out well for the Titans. Cedric Gray was a really good, solid pick. Some mock drafts had him in the second round, definitely the third round. And so for him to last to the fourth round, thankfully at the top of the fourth round, we were able to get him at 106. And he's a player. I know much has been brought up about the green dot. I'm not too big on the green dot thing. I think anybody can call a play. They're 16-year-olds in high school that can call complicated plays, all day long. So I don't think that's a huge deal, but to, kind of put that to bed, I think he can be that person, or, Amani Hooker, someone that Rand Carthon also mentioned, could get the green dot. But I think we're seeing this nexus of leadership starting to, come about whenever we look about 3-4 years down the road. I can see a clear vision of what the Titans are going to be, and Cedric Gay looks like one of those clear centerpieces for me. Now, your other question, what was it again? Sorry.
Your least favorite pick.
Least favorite pick. That's hard. We really had some really good picks. But I guess least favorite would probably be Jaquan Jackson. Now, we did desperately need that, but I think Malik Washington probably had more value coming out of Virginia than Jaquan Jackson. But I understand it, and I think they probably played their board, and he was probably at the top of their board above Malik Washington. But really, when you're getting to the round 6, round 7, there's not, a lot of variance between guys that are either 150th or 270th. There's really not much of a difference, really. So, but I mean, generally, there's not much of a least favorite pick. Originally, my least favorite pick would have been T'Vondre Sweat, because as you know, I messaged you and I was up in arms about it. I thought he was, I thought he was, before doing a lot more research, thought he was going to be another Panda 2.0 type of situation. Hopefully, of course, that's not the case. He still has to, prove to Titans fans that he's, worthy of being selected that high. And of course, we absolutely want that to happen. We want him to be, a solid contributor for years to come. And we know that he has the capability to. So yeah, originally my least favorite pick was definitely T'Vondre Sweat.
Code, what about you?
So my least favorite is what I will start with. I do not necessarily care for the James Williams pick out of Miami. I'm basing that solely off of biased opinion, just because of where he is not necessarily coming from, but his stats are kind of mid. But I guess that's a 6th-round pick in that manner, or 7th-round, or early 7th-round pick. So if you gamble in the 7th, you're not losing a whole lot. I just wasn't really 100% sold on him, but he could prove me wrong. I hope he does. I don't want anybody to not succeed with us, if that makes sense. My favorite pick is actually not a pick at all, and you're going to laugh at me for saying this because it's an undrafted free agent.
Oh, I have a
But
feeling I know where this is going.
Yeah, I think Jabari Small is a steal at undrafted free agent.
I think he can definitely make the team.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to be a factor every Sunday, but Tajay goes down for a little bit. Tony Pollard, for whatever reason, has something that goes on. He's a legitimate plug and play back that can do what you need him to.
Yeah. So with the James Williams thing, if he sticks at safety, I agree with you. I don't like it. He's not very athletic. He's slow as hell. But all points are, everything so far shows that they want to play him at linebacker, which I think he's much better fit at. Our linebacker room, as Jack said, is incredibly mid. There's not one player in that room that I have faith in. So I think, it could be an interesting project. Like you said, it's a 7th-round pick, so you're not really – anything you get is a plus. My favorite pick is honestly T'Vondre Sweat, if it works. I just think he has probably the highest upside. I think he could really be special, and I think he could be a game breaker next to Jeffrey Simmons. He's just got to stay on the right track. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I didn't really like the Jaquan Jackson pick either, just because it just seems like a weird pick to me. Like, you wait till then to draft a receiver in a class that's extremely loaded with receivers. And I know that receiver isn't as big of a need as it was 2 months ago, but it's still a need. You'd like to get some young talent in there. And a guy who has no route tree to speak of. He's pretty much just a gadget player. But it could be cool. I mean, look at the Saints with like Rashid Shaheed. It's not like he was an elite receiver prospect, and he's turned into like the best return man and gadget player in the league. So there's a place for that. I mean, when it's late in the draft like that, you can afford to take a gamble on something like that, I guess. But overall, I mean, I know we all kind of feel the same. I mean, I think it was a solid draft. I don't think it was anything spectacular. I don't think it was horrible. Only time will tell, obviously, but going, forward, obviously they've made some references to like signing a free agent safety, which I think is needed. But what do you guys think is the biggest hole remaining on the roster?
Jack, I'll let you handle that one first, brother.
Okay. All right. So I think the next biggest need on this roster is probably someone that's already on the roster, but we don't know who. What is going on at right tackle? I think that's the biggest question we really have kind of going forward. We don't know if it's going to be Radens. We don't know if it's going to be MPF, and we don't know necessarily if those guys are going to be healthy. MPF had some issues last year. Yeah, obviously starting with the suspension, unfortunately, and then he, got hurt. And then Radens kind of has been a jack of all trades all over the line because he stepped in for Skoronski whenever he had the appendectomy, and he played a little bit of right guard when Brunskill got hurt for a few drives. And so really, I think we really need to find out who's going to be that other tackle opposite. I really wanted the Titans to go out and get a seasoned vet, maybe a Trent Brown. Obviously, the money wasn't there because the Patriots signed him for quite a bit of money. And I think that was probably a bit of an overpay. But someone like Tyron Smith, I think, could have been, decent. And if he gets hurt, then we have a solid backup like Radens or something of that nature. I think could have worked. But, yeah, the right tackle position still scares me.
Yeah, I agree. I saw enough from NPF last year to not want him to sniff the field this year. I think if I have to go with someone currently on the roster, I would like Radens to get a chance at right tackle because they've been, I mean, for what I'm not at practice. I don't know what he looks like, but he just hasn't really gotten a chance to play tackle as a pro. And I think you might as well see what you got there because, like you said, he's been like a jack of all trades and he's been fine. Like when he's had to fill in, he's been fine. So I wouldn't mind having him at right tackle. Or, it could be a situation like last year where late in the summer they signed a veteran swing tackle. Chris Hubbard did pretty well last year. So could be somebody like that comes in. I still think middle linebacker is a need. I don't think, Kenneth Murray just signed this offseason. He's got all the athletic traits. He's a freak. He's super fast. But if you look at like subreddit, the Chargers subreddit, nobody was really upset to see him leave. Like he can't cover. Now, granted, it could be a perfect change of scenery candidate. And then obviously Cedric Gray, who's a 4th-round rookie. Like, are you really? I mean, we all like him, but do you really want to have to rely on him from day one? I mean, it seems like they might have to. I'm not a Jack Gibbons fan. I think Jack Gibbons sucks. Otis Reese looked pretty good last year in spurts, but again, I mean, do you really want to rely on an undrafted free agent from a year ago? And then the other safety spot, I wanted Kayvon Wallace back. That didn't happen. So I think there's still a lot of good options. There's Marcus May is a free agent. Quandre Diggs is a free agent. Justin Simmons. So I would like to see some veteran depth added back there. But I think those are the 3 spots that you're really going to be looking at as problem areas. I think receiver and corner are firmly off the list. I think I don't know about you guys, but DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Nick Westbrook, Treylon, Kyle Phillips, Tyler Boyd. I think that's the best receiver room we've ever had.
If we get Tyler Boyd, yeah.
I just think that is a dynamic group that's unlike anything we've ever had. I mean, we usually have like 4 bums that nobody else wants, and it's just this is exciting. And the same thing can be said with the corner room because you have a true star, L'Jarius Sneed. You have a solid number 2 in Chidobe Awuzie. And then you have Roger McCreary, who is awesome in the nickel. So I think you got to feel really good about those positions because those are the 2 position groups that we're always complaining about every offseason. And it seems like we've finally addressed them. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, I think our best position group by far is the cornerbacks. That is, they really went into this offseason with a plan, and they addressed that because every single week we were getting burned deep because Christian Fulton was falling down, or Trey Avery, or some of these other guys that we brought off the street from Kroger, are getting just blown away. And if you look, Calvin Ridley's best games were was against us both times. He put, almost, 200 yards on us both times and scored touchdowns. Um, our DBs have, consistently been, considered a joke. And with L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, Roger McCreary, plus Jarvis Brownlee Jr. for depth, I think that really, we really solidified that. And we shouldn't have to worry about, wide receiver threes, wide receiver fours running up and down the field scoring touchdowns.
Code, it's extremely early, but do you think this is a playoff team?
It is extremely early. However, I believe in this coaching staff. Do I think we're going to win 14 games? No. Do I think that we'll make a wild card cut? Yes. Unfortunately, and this hurts coming from my mouth, but I think the Texans are going to be hot next year or this season. I don't see any change coming from Jacksonville, really. They'll be competitive and middle of the pack. Indianapolis in our division is probably the biggest question since Anthony Richardson didn't get to play the whole year last year. How does he adapt with that team? How do they adapt around him? As far as a full, complete setup, I believe we have the best chance to not necessarily win the division, but I think it'll be about like it has been in the past where, hey, it comes down to one or two games of who wins the division.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll be right in the mix. I think everybody's writing us off, of course, like usual, but I think that this team could surprise some people. I mean, nobody predicted the Texans to be good last year, and you see how that turned out. So I'm not saying we'll be the
crowd so bad, man.
No, I'm not saying that we'll be the Texans of last year, but I do think we have a chance to be a playoff team that nobody expects. I mean, like you said, Code, I think if we're being honest with ourselves, Houston is the number one in the division. They've earned it. They're just – I like their coaching staff. C.J. Stroud is incredible. They only got better. They added Danielle Hunter, Stephon Diggs. I mean, it is what it is.
That's tough.
The Jags, I'm not impressed by. I don't think they got better. If anything, I think they might have slightly downgraded. I mean, they traded in – they basically replaced Calvin Ridley with Gabe Davis, which I think is a downgrade. They did a lot of like lateral moves like that. And then the Colts, like you said, are a big wild card because we don't really know what they have at quarterback. So I don't think it's a stretch at all to say the Titans could finish second in the AFC South. I mean, I don't see why people are acting like that is an affront to God to suggest. Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at their schedule right now, and
their schedule's brutal. Yeah, I mean that's a thing.
Because I counted 3 should-be wins: Washington, Jets, Patriots. Those should be guaranteed wins. Now fingers crossed. We know how the Titans are, but we're gonna have to sweep one of the AFC South teams. That could be the Colts, could be the Jags. Definitely is not going to be Houston. Unfortunately, but we need to sweep one of them, and then we play the NFC North and the AFC East. So that's tough, especially with the Bears getting as good as they are. Jordan Love turning it on. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison up in Minnesota. We'll see about J.J. McCarthy. I doubt a rookie quarterback is going to do well there. But there's some question marks here that I'm looking at this schedule, and it's kind of hard to find 8 wins.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule is horrible. I believe it's like the fourth or fifth hardest in the league. Um, but I mean, it's also a thing where nobody really knows right now because we haven't seen these teams play. We don't know what kind of injuries. We don't know, who's going to just regress. So I try not to read too much into that, especially knowing the Titans. I mean, for as long as I've been alive, we lose to the shitty teams and we beat the teams that we're double-digit underdogs to. So I don't really read too much stock into that, but it is definitely a thing to consider. Um, but I do think talent-wise, like on paper, this is a much better roster. It's a much better team. Um, the coach isn't an egomaniac. I think it's trending up. I think we can say that. Um, if you have Super Bowl expectations for this year, you're going to be disappointed. I mean, I don't know who would do that, but this isn't a contending team. But I like we said, I think we could sneak into the playoffs. The AFC is just tough.
Yeah, it is. And I was thinking, sorry, Code. And I was thinking too, one of the key things that teams go into this happens every single season. When you have a new coach and you bring in a whole bunch of new players, teams aren't sure how to game plan against you early on.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're playing, somebody that's been there a while, like, the Lions or the Colts, they have the same staff, pretty much the same players. The Colts didn't sign any outside players, I don't think, or one or two. They basically mostly kept their own. We're gonna be sneaky because they're not gonna know how to game plan against us, and I'm sure Brian Callahan's gonna have something cooked up for that first quarter of the season, pretty much, that is gonna kind of shake give a little sleight of hand for some of these guys that and I think it's a really good thing to have a new quarterback in a new system, and we got plenty of talent around him that Brian Callahan should be able to call this offense, and the defense, at least early on, won't be able to catch up too quick to it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. It gives me things to like look forward to. Where it seems as last year felt like we were kind of stuck in purgatory. At least it seems like we have direction, and the fact that so much was shelled out in free agency this year, it gives me the inclination that they're not anticipating a rebuild necessarily. I mean, you don't trade for L'Jarius Sneed, you don't sign Calvin Ridley to that massive deal if you think you're going to suck for the next couple of years. I think they're really trying to be competitive when the new stadium opens. So I think, this could be a rough year, but I think it'll only go up from here. I think that's the game plan. So we'll see how it goes. We'll keep you guys updated. We've got summer workouts and stuff that'll be coming up soon. So it'll be cool to see the rookies out there for the first time. Anything else y'all wanted to hit on?
My biggest question mark that we have not talked about the whole show is Mason Rudolph at backup quarterback.
Do you not? Did you prefer somebody else at backup?
Not necessarily. It's just when you go out and spend money on a backup in that sense, are you wanting him to be plug and play? Do you trust Mason Rudolph? Granted, he didn't do terrible in Pittsburgh. I'm not saying that about the guy. I was just more curious on what both of your thoughts were about him running the backup, especially the type of ball that Will Levis plays. Will Levis is going to run and dive. He's going to lay people out, and so there's going to be plays that Mason's going to have to come in. It's going to happen. How do you feel about him at the helm versus Levis at the helm?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a legitimate, question to raise because, like you said, Levis's play style, and my go-tos are always Tyrod Taylor or Jacoby Brissett. Like those are the two that I always want, and we never get, just because whenever they have to come in, there's not a drop off at all. Like they keep their teams afloat, and I'm not sure that Mason Rudolph is that level. I don't think he is horrible by any means. I think, he doesn't have the arm that Levis has. He doesn't have the mobility that Levis has. So that makes it kind of weird to me because, like with Josh Dobbs, for example, at least he does have the wheels. He can run. He kind of plays more similar to Levis. So that the fit is a little bit odd now that you mention it. But like you said, though, he does have experience starting. So I do think, I don't think we would be totally screwed. But that is interesting. What did you think about that, Jack?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid veteran move. He's been in the league since since 19. And I think you'll probably see something similar to, we never heard of who Jake Browning was last year, but a lot of credit for him comes from Coach Callahan, getting him ready, game planning with him after Burrow went down. So I think we have kind of that. We have the capability with coaching and being able to coach around the situation if Levis were to get hurt. We pray that's not the case. But I think, Rudolph would do much better than Malik Willis has the past 2 seasons, for sure. And, if we can just keep that rolling and then, just not turn the ball over, of course, being the biggest one, then I think Mason Rudolph is good enough to where he can be kind of like that Neil O'Donnell type, early or late 90s backup quarterback for McNair, originally starting quarterback. But be that type of guy that, just a vet that can just take care of the football and, come in whenever needed.
Yeah, let's call a spade a spade. Malik Willis is horrible. So I think he's definitely better than Malik Willis.
And Malik Willis jerseys to go on sale for $20 at the shop, though.
I wanted him to be good so bad. This is embarrassing, but I actually did have a Malik Willis jersey because I was so ready to be done with Tannehill that I was embracing Malik Willis as the starter. And then I realized that he has the IQ of a houseplant and he's not good. I think Mason Rudolph is definitely not that level. So it's an upgrade in that regard for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at the backup quarterbacks around the league. I think last year more backup quarterbacks played than any other time in NFL history, and they were pretty much all garbage. And you look at the Browns; they were able to kind of, churn and get into the playoffs with 41-year-old Joe Flacco or however old he is, and be competitive. So I think building around the quarterback position and having a strong defense, which Rand Carthon has done a phenomenal job of turning around this defense, at least on paper, that it should give credit to Mason Rudolph if he ever has to step in.
That's a good point as well. Like you don't have to be Joe Montana when you have Calvin Ridley and Nuke Hopkins. That definitely helps. All right, guys. I think that just about does it for episode 1. Did y'all have any parting shots?
Well, let's go sign Tyler Boyd. That's my parting shot. Go get him.
Agreed. Let's just solidify it.
And Marcus May.
Yeah, just solidify it. Make it as good as you can. This is we're getting to that point where all the big dominoes have fallen, so it's just about those key veteran additions. So hopefully they come on, and hopefully on the next episode we'll have a couple of those to mention. So, all right, boys, tighten up.
All right, tighten up.